Hi, everyone, and welcome to WHYZ HR, everything you want to know about human resources. My name's Dr. Jack Mitchell, and I'm your host for this show tonight. We're going to be talking about money. So I'm sure you're going to want to stay tuned to listen to about money and compensation as an employee and from an employee's point of view as well. Stay tuned, and I think you're going to enjoy this show. Hello there, Dr. Jack here. And again, it's such a pleasure to be tonight talking about my favorite subject, human resources. And I have with me tonight my co-host for the month of August. And this is her last show for now, but she's been absolutely fantastic. My good friend, Director of Human Resources for Solid Waste Authority of the Palm Beaches, Palm Beach County, my friend Colette Gotti. Welcome,
Thank you
Colette.
very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you again tonight.
Thank you, Colette. I pay her to say that, so that's wonderful. Thank you, Colette. And also, we want to bring on another guest that we've had throughout the month, and he's been absolutely brilliant and spectacular. David Wood. Come on, David, say hello to the folks.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. So very much an honor.
Thank you so much, David. Tonight, we're going to be talking about compensation and performance appraisals, a couple of real important topics in the world of human resources, in the world of business, from an employee's point of view, and also from an employer's point of view. And also, what we want to do is also, there's a lot of HR professionals who watch our show, so we want to give them some ideas, senior HR professionals, some of our thinking about compensation and about performance appraisals. I was checking earlier before the show started to see how well Colette remembered what my 3 goals are for the show. Colette, can you share that with the folks?
Oh, I can. So you want it to be fun, engaging, and informative.
That's it. So that's our goal. This is our free time. We want it to be fun. Also, Colette wanted me to make sure that you folks knew that this show is not scripted. This is live, and so what we say is what we say, and it's we don't prepare for it. It's just we have so many years' experience, and David and Colette have such terrific backgrounds and experience that the knowledge and the wisdom just flows from them. So it's kind of what we want to do is just have a discussion among friends about subjects that we really love and are interested in the world of HR. So that's what this whole show's about, and we're going to get started right away. So we want to talk about compensation first. And the person that has the certification also in compensation is my friend here, Colette. Tell us, how did you get that?
The certification
The
in
certification,
compensation.
yeah.
It's a certified compensation specialist. It's through World at Work.
Okay.
And you take a series of courses. It's similar to like an associate's degree in terms of all different subjects within compensation. And I also worked in compensation for a number of years for 9X as well as Bell Atlantic at the time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we really have an expert. David, I don't have any credentials like that in compensation. I have a little background in compensation. And the emphasis there is little. What about yourself, David? Do you have any experience or any technical background in compensation?
Other than on the job experience, being in hiring and also HRIS type situations, so in position control.
Well, we're going to weigh heavily for Colette's wisdom and knowledge on this subject. So that's
high
wonderful.
standards here.
Colette, can you tell the folks a little bit about just that? What were some of the topics that you would study under the concept of compensation? What are some of the issues that an HR professional has to think through when it comes to compensation?
Well, it starts with, from the very basic about how much is a job worth. So you price out a position, a job, And that starts with a job description. What does the position do? What are the requirements for the position in terms of education, experience? And then once that's laid out, you usually look at the job description within the confines of that group or organization. And there's several different methods in which to value a position. You can either value it, how important is that job within the organization. You can value it within the marketplace, and generally both are used. So you'll go out and do a market study and figure out who are your competitors within your region and within the industry. How much are they paying, and how much is that job worth?
Now, how do you find that out? In other words, do you call them and say, listen, I'm doing a study, and it's for a bookkeeper position, and the company is a $5 million company? Is that what you do? Or how do you get that information from the marketplace?
That's an excellent question, because it's changed over the years. But you can do a compensation study, which is typically the way they do it now, and there's companies that actually do compensation surveys. Or if it's informal, when you could just call your colleagues or your counterparts within the area that are in the same business or same industry. There's a number of different ways. Generally speaking, people go to and do an actual compensation survey, and they go out to the marketplace.
Okay.
And they find like companies, like size, in like industry. So if I were a food store, for example, I wouldn't go into a government position and say, what are you paying for, a marketing specialist? So we're in government, I'm in solid waste. So my competitors are other governments and other solid waste authorities.
Okay.
So I'll find out who they are, and then I'll call them. And the jobs vary by geographic area.
Yeah.
So Pennsylvania is going to pay differently than Florida versus Miami or Manhattan and different areas within the country. So geographic location also plays a part in how you value a position.
So do you get a range? Is that what it is? In other words, that position for bookkeeper, for example, when you're doing this analysis, do you try to get a range of who pays the least amount and who pays the most amount? Is that how that's done?
Yes. Another good question. So generally, positions are done by pay grade, not necessarily by job. So if I said bookkeeper, I'm going to say a bookkeeper is let's just say a pay grade 111, right? Or pick a number 10. And so then for pay grade 10, I'm going to slot all the jobs that have similar requirements in terms of responsibilities, education.
Wow.
Right? So I'll slot them similarly, and then each position or pay grade will have a minimum, a midpoint, and a maximum. The midpoint is what the market pays.
Okay.
The minimum is generally about 10% below, and maximum, or the top of the pay range, is generally, it can be any percentage above, depending on where the organization wants to be in the market. So, for example, if you want to be, if you're a Google and you want to be the best in the industry, so what's important to you is to recruit the best of the best, you're going to want to pay your employees over market, right? Or you're going to want to pay them at market, and then have a good compensation plan to support whatever your goals are for them to achieve.
Interesting. We're going to talk a little bit more about this and get David's input and a little of my input right after this commercial. We'll see you right after the commercial.
The Greek philosopher Socrates said, the first step to wisdom is to know thyself. Complete a WHYZ personality profile to really know yourself. Get a 93 to 97% accurate 40-page comprehensive report of your personality styles. You'll also have the opportunity to have a phone consultation with an expert in understanding the report.
Okay, we're back talking with Colette about compensation. And Colette, when I was involved, and David, I'm going to ask you also, when I was involved in corporate life up in Manhattan, I was a senior VP for a very large organization. We had 26, well, it was 26,000 employees, which is good size. It's not huge, but I was the senior HR executive, and I had a compensation professional who was full-time doing exactly what you were talking about, those kind of analysis. But she did everything in quartiles. So we had ranges that were broken down into fourths. And the idea was you would hire someone ideally in the first quartile, but if they had experience, you could hire them up to the second quartile, but you tried not to hire anyone in the third quartile, because then after a while, if they got raises and so forth, then they may be hit the max of that position, and they're going to get frustrated. The idea being, though, that they're going to get frustrated, but there's nowhere else they can go because we're paying the most that anyone's paying, for that job in that category. So I'm very familiar with the quartile system. I'm not familiar with, you had the midpoint, you had the minimum, midpoint, and the max. Okay, David, what's been your experience?
I've kind of done both of that, where you have the mid, and max, like almost like a bell curve type situation, where you try to get within that mid range. I've also done the quartile thing where it's redlined. So meaning that when a position is redlined, the person can never make above a certain amount, period, in that particular role. So I've done both of those types of systems before.
I had one of my assignments when I was working in corporate life, I had to go to a location in Philadelphia, and there was a woman there. Her name was Dolores. And Dolores at the time had to be perhaps 70. She was this wonderful, wonderful, short, little diminutive lady with the white hair. And she'd been with the company for 40, 50 years. I think she started when she was like 16. And so, and every year she got a raise. She was making more money than the vice presidents of the company. And so when I got there, I go, holy Moses, I was looking at her salary. Her salary, David, was more than what the vice presidents were making, because she kept on breathing and she kept on working, and every year she got a raise. So, and I had to speak to her, which was not an easy thing to do, and say, listen, from now on, you're at a max. We'll consider a cost of living every few years, but right now, your compensation is that job. She still stayed pretty much as at that time they were called secretaries. She was a secretary, and I said at the time she was making more than any of the vice presidents of the company. So that can happen. Yeah. But I had the unhappy responsibility and task of confronting her and saying, listen, you're really a valued employee and you've been here all this time, but from now on, there are no more raises. So she wasn't pleased. She wasn't pleased with that message. I was not her favorite person. I'm afraid.
Compensation is very personal.
It's very personal, isn't it? Huh?
It's very personal. Yeah.
One of the things I want to talk about, in other words, what about going online? Again, when I was active in corporate life, I used to buy these surveys, and they're pretty expensive, but we had a large corporation, and I had a good size HR budget. And I used to buy these surveys that were really quite well done, and they would tell me what the range would be for the people in my own. I was in the advertising and PR world, and so I had the price ranges for positions that, a media planner or a account manager or a creative designer, that type of thing. So I could tell. Today I'm hearing people going to the internet to find out. David, what's been your experience? Have you had people come to you looking for a raise or saying, my salary is not correct because I checked on the internet? And what's one of the normal positions that you would have in your organization, David?
Like you were talking about, like a staff assistant or something like that.
So a staff assistant would come to you and say, I checked in the internet on the staff assistant, and it said, what would be a range for a staff assistant, David, just roughly? Probably
anywhere from around $12 to $20, $18, $20, depending on their role, things like that. So, an area.
So someone comes to you and says, well, I saw on on the internet that they're paying $25 to $28. Have you had that situation when someone's come to you, and how do you respond to that? And how true are the numbers that you find online on the internet?
I mean, the numbers are average, general averages. I know a lot of times when that situation happens, they're coming to me saying that, oh, well, it shows $25 an hour, but you're looking in either Miami or New York or California. So those market averages are going to be quite different than if you have them adjusted to your particular area where they live. So it makes a big difference.
Okay. Is that your experience also? You know, if someone came to you and said, listen, you know, I'm getting paid, I'm getting paid $16 an hour, and I know on the internet it said I should be making $25 or $26 an hour. How would you respond to that?
Actually, no one's ever said that to me before. I'm surprised.
I'm making $16 an hour. What would you say?
I've been through a lot of different
Yeah.
experiences. I would say, well, that's what the job is worth. If you're fully functioning and you've met all the qualifications and you have the education, and I would tell them within our organization, here's what the range is, and here's how we pay or compensate employees for this. And when you were hired, they looked at your experience, your knowledge, your education, and they made you an offer based on you personally and how you fit within that range.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, the ranges, go up, you get more experience, you can become more fully qualified in the position. So I would look to see where they are relative to the range. And I wouldn't necessarily tell them, no, you're not eligible, or, well, sorry, Charlie. I would actually look and make sure that the job is priced appropriately and then see where they are within that range. And there potentially could be a compensation adjustment that's due to them. I mean, that I have done in the past.
Yep.
When people have complained, and they generally complain that they want more money because they're worth it and they work hard and everything else, right? So then we'll take a look, again, taking a look at their experience, their performance evaluations, their knowledge and such. And we'll take a look at where they are also relative to other peers within that position as well. So there are opportunities to do a salary adjustment.
Yeah, and there's a difference between a salary raise and a salary adjustment,
Yes.
correct? Why don't you explain to the folks, what's the difference between a salary increase and a salary adjustment?
A salary increase is generally based on some event. So it might be an annual performance evaluation. It could be a promotion, right? So it's an event where they've earned or moved positions. But it could be a lateral move. It depends on the compensation policy within that organization. So that's an increase. An adjustment is where somebody, again, could come to, David or I or someone in HR and say, I'm not making enough money. All my friends or the internet says I should be making X and I'm only making Y. This generally they say, well, this isn't fair and I should get more money. So that's when we'll take a look at their experience, qualifications, how long they've been with the company. We'll take a look at that pay range. Remember I said, let's just say it's in a grade, 5. So I'll take a look at everybody in a grade 5. I'll take a look at all the positions. I'll take a look at where they are relative to their peers, and then take a look at it, make a recommendation or not.
And so the adjustment then adjusts their base salary.
Correct, within the range.
To put it into the correct range that's based on what the job actually is and what their performance is in that particular job.
And we also take into consideration how long they've been there, right? So if someone's brand new and they're at the bottom of the pay scale, so as you said, you generally hire in the first, maybe second quartile. So if you hire somebody, let's say at the very base or first quartile or the minimum of the pay grade, and they come in and say, hey, everybody else doing this job is making, $25 an hour and I'm only making $15 an hour, I get more money, right? Because they're all doing the exact same job. And that generally happens with the example
Absolutely.
you showed us, right? She's doing the exact same job as somebody else who comes in. She's making, let's say 100,000 and this one's making 40,000. She's like, oh, I deserve more money. I make more work, do more work than she does. So that again is based on the reason why she's earning that amount is because of performance ratings over the years. So I've had people that have walked in the door together, walked in different departments. One is making more than them, and they say, well, wait a minute, I should be making the same thing as Susie. We came in together.
Yep.
We're doing the same job. I'm over here and she's over there. How come? And so I have had people come up and make that argument. And so it's really based on performance.
Mhm.
So maybe she was a higher performer and she got a higher raise one year than you did. And if raises are given on percentages of salary,
Mhm.
percent based on a higher salary is going to be more money.
Yeah.
So that's where the differences in salaries begin to start showing up.
It's one of the things too, when you start off at a low salary, and you get your raises, your annual raises and so forth, it's based on a lower salary as someone else who started and they were able to negotiate a higher salary.
Right.
So there's a lot of times when people start talking about their salaries, and they do, we, as executives, we said, don't talk about your salaries, but people talk about their salaries. It's great conversation, and they get upset because you're making $26 and I'm making $16, and we're doing basically the same kind of thing. So
Right.
it can be kind of a touchy situation. One of the myths I want to kind of puncture is that, well, I work hard, so therefore I need more money. I used to scratch my head and say, well, I don't care how hard you work, that's not the goal here, to work hard. The goal is to work smart. And so the fact is that you're working harder than someone else. Why should I pay you more for working hard, where if your output and the quality of your work is the same as Colette, and she's not working as hard as you, well, God bless Colette, So just the fact that, so that's one myth. Don't go to your boss and say, I need a raise because I'm working hard. To me, I would I pay no attention to that. That to me is not a legitimate kind of concern. The other one too is, think about it. Some people say, well, I should get a raise because it's an annual raise. And I'm saying to myself, well, what additional value have you brought to that position? You've done the same thing last year that you did the year before, and you're going to do the same thing this coming year. Why should I pay you more money? Because you really haven't added anything, especially when you've been there in the same job for a while. You've been there doing the same thing for 7 years. Then, as a business owner, as I've been, I say, well, why should I pay this person more money? They're doing the very same thing. They're not adding anything. My revenue is not going up because it's the same thing. You haven't added anything. How do you respond to someone like that? Because that's how I feel, whether I'm still warm and friendly and say, okay, I'll give you a raise. But I really kind of resent that as a business owner and having to pay people salaries, and they say, I want more money because they've just breathed longer than someone else, but they haven't added anything. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it starts with what's the compensation philosophy of the company, right? Do they give annual merit increases? Do they give bonuses, or cost of living increases, or do they just keep pace with the market value for the positions? So generally, at least in the companies that I've worked for, we have annual performance evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll tell an employee, hey, we want you to do a good job and we want you to work hard, and here's what's important to us, right? And so you'll lay out at the beginning of the year the objectives that you want that person to meet to add value for the job and the organization and the company as a whole, right? And you'll define what those competencies are and what you're going to evaluate them on, right? So generally, attendance and reliability is one thing, right? Do you come to work? Are you here on time? Do you work your full day? Or do you just call out and leave us high and dry, right? So there's certain metrics that we can measure, right? So it's generally communications, it's reliability and attendance, it's quality of work, productivity, right? So if you have an employee that comes to work every single day and does whatever work is in front of them and just turns it over and leaves at the end of the day, in theory, they met all their performance requirements.
Yep.
So, and then you take a look at the rating scale, and let's just say it's I don't know, as simple as 1, 2, 3 or 1 to 5, right? So is that person a 3? They came to work every day. Do they know what they're doing, right? And have they done it? And if they've met it, well, then they've met the performance criteria that was established for them. So,
we forgot to be ringing bells because there's been a lot of really good stuff going on. And my producer just held up a sign and said, don't forget the bell. So as you folks that watch our show frequently know, when someone says something brilliant, just like Colette did in answering my question, she deserved a ring of the bell. David, how about yourself? So we can ring a bell on you. How would you answer that type of thing when someone comes and says, why should I pay you more? You really haven't done anything. You're a receptionist, and you're there on time, and but you haven't really when you answer the phone nicely and you do a good job, but that's what you get paid for, and you're getting a fair pay. So why should I give you a raise? Because next year you're going to do the same thing. I expect you to be here on time, and I expect you to answer the phone and take accurate messages. So why should I give you a raise? How would you respond? The stingy me.
A lot of times you need to think of, is it a cost of living? I mean, are they just doing the standard expected performance, or are they really doing something else that is above and beyond learning?
He's a receptionist, and he answers the phone. He's there 8:30 in the morning like he's supposed to be, and he takes his breaks when he's supposed to. He takes his lunchtime when he's supposed to. He comes back. And he's there, and he's pleasant on the phone, and he takes accurate messages. So when I come in, there's a pink slip that says, Dr. Jack, call Zeke and call Zelda. So he does a good job, and I pay him fairly for that, competitively. He's right in the middle of the. And at the end of the year, if we have a good year, I may give him a bonus, a Christmas bonus. Maybe it's a turkey, Thanksgiving or something, but. He's a good, solid employee, but why should I pay him more? Because he's doing a good job, and I expect him to do a good job because he's getting paid to do a good job. Why should I pay him more?
Generally you don't, unless it's just like a cost of living, or if there needs to be a reclassification of the position, there might be additional duties in learning that you might need to go and look to see. Do you need to adjust it? But if standard performance is being achieved, then it's usually a general raise. It's not an above and beyond situation. But most of the time, positions are adjusted for cost of living every year.
But you don't do that every year. You do a cost of living every 3 to 5 years, so you wouldn't do it every year. But don't you think most employees who are working for a decent-sized company, not necessarily just a 1 or 2 person shop, but a larger organization that has 20, 30, 50 employees, don't you think most of them expect an annual raise, 3%? David, would you say that they expect that?
They might expect it, but unfortunately, sometimes depending upon the performance of the organization as a whole, you can't possibly do that from a budget perspective.
Yeah, but I'm making pretty good money. I'm selling widgets, and so I keep on making more profit because I have people that really Colette's doing a great job for me, and David's doing a great job for me. So we're making money. But this person is a staff position, but he's doing a good job, and so but I'm paying him fairly because I had Colette do an analysis of his salary range, and he's just smack dab in the middle of that salary range. So he's not getting underpaid and he's not getting overpaid, but he's getting fairly paid. Can you help me with that?
Yeah. So in my experience, again, it goes back to the philosophy of the company. So when we hire somebody, we generally tell them this is the way our performance evaluation process works, and this is the way our merit works. And ideally, one of the most critical things an organization to do is communicate with an employee and tell them what their expectations are. Here's what I expect.
Yeah. Right? Manage expectations.
Manage expectations.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, my philosophy is, I don't want somebody just sitting in a job like a warm body in a chair. I want somebody who's really going to go above and beyond, who is engaged in their job, right? Who loves to greet those customers, who take really good messages, who ask questions like, oh, what is this about? Does he know? Is he ready? Is there something that I can, tell him so when he calls you, he has an answer? Right? I want people to go above and beyond and be excited about their job. And if I'm only going to pay them or only consider them
As a
average,
clog. Average, yeah.
as just answer the phone and give me the messages, right? So that's what you're going to get.
You can see why, working for the Solid Waste Authority, this lady is terrific. Can you imagine having someone like her in your company, fighting for you and your compensation and motivating you to be just the best you can be, as opposed to just a clod, just doing your work.
Right.
Look at this one. Isn't that wonderful? We're coming back right after this commercial, and stay with us.
Some of the benefits that we received from the Leadership Institute is, one, getting to know what your work style is and just finding like better ways or the best way to communicate with not only your team, but with people in general. And I found this leadership training to be something I did not imagine. It's been very enjoyable. It's very interactive. And I'm learning things about myself that I didn't know before. It really makes you think and look at things in a different perspective.
One of the things that I think that hopefully you, the audience, is getting is the value of having real HR professionals working for you. When you listen to David and you listen to Colette, and you understand what they're saying and how they're really looking out for the success of their company, that they have the knowledge, they have the wisdom. Wisdom's a big word. They have the wisdom to know how to help people to really not be clogs, not just to have a job, but to get excited and to realize that even if you are that receptionist, you're really important to that organization. And, in Colette's organization, I'm sure that receptionist is just outstanding, and in David's organization, that receptionist is not just a clog, just doing, he's there at 8:30 and he takes his lunch on time, but this is a person who really gets excited about being the very best, really first class and world class. So every position should be like that. People in every position should feel that motivated, that they're there not just to be average, but they're there to, and HR's role, part of HR's role is to motivate them and to help the management team keep that kind of standard and that kind of excitement. So one of the things I really want our audience to really appreciate is the value of having really good HR professionals as part of your team. Listen to them because they have a lot to offer. So you employers out there, value that HR professional because he or she can add great insights and great value to your company that ultimately are going to make you even more successful as a company and keep those employees highly motivated, highly compensated, and just with a terrific smile on their face and ready to come to work the next day. I want to personally thank David and I want to thank Colette. I think they did an outstanding job. They just weren't good co-hosts. They were exceptionally good co-hosts. So they had knowledge, they had wit, they were engaging, they were fun, and they certainly were informative. So it's been a wonderful month, and I want to thank both of them for the time that it took. They had to come to the studio. David had to take time to clean his office and be prepared. So David, we want to thank you for being there, and Colette for being here on site with us. So we want to thank our friends here at TCoast Studios for hosting us, our wonderful producer, Indira, for making everything go so well here on the show. And we want you to take your phone and schedule us in for next Tuesday at 7:30, same time, same station. And we look forward to seeing you then for another wonderful show of WHYZ HR, everything you want to know about human resources. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you at the next show.